Trading just the Nasdaq last week, I was able to turn my $1,000 into over $3,600 with just one single setup. Now, the most interesting part about all of this is we all literally had the exact same setup, but trading is a mindset game. Your psychology, your brain has to be working at its maximum for you to be able to capitalize on a setup that has just been laid in front of you by anyone. Now, with trading, it is very much possible to trade any amount of money into whatever amount of money that you want. One person once said that if you can trade $1, you can trade up to $1 million. But it's all going to start with the mindset. Now, welcome back to another Sunday video. How you guys doing? I am doing absolutely lovely, especially after this beautiful week that we just had with the Nasdaq. This is the overall trade that we took on Nasdaq with just 3 different trades, adding positions. Remember, when we had the weekly analysis, we were right at this spot. We wanted the market to break out of this level. No, actually, we were not here. This is Monday. So we were right at this spot, somewhere here. Right? No, somewhere here. Yes. Then we had the market breaking out of, this level with such a crazy push to the upside after it played around at the spot. Didn't want to even see Nasdaq coming to these levels, right? So let's just take out the trend line that we already had here, and we can get right into the weekly analysis as we do that, right? So this trend line still has to be respected, right? Well, now that it's far away from these levels, it makes a lot more sense if it is respected. Remember, I didn't want Nasdaq to come to these levels because this trend line could have been weak if it had done that at the spot, right? And it just came, broke out of this level with such great momentum, and it pushed to the upside. Now, there was a lot of opportunity to actually also catch this trade because this is a 4-hour analysis. Let's just go over to the lower time frames. Let me just delete this, but you can see that the trade was an absolutely lovely one, right? So on the 4-hour time frame, you can clearly see that we had the market forming a little range, broke out here at this zone. Right after you watched the weekly analysis, as soon as you saw this breakout, you should have taken the trade and rolled it up with us. Look at what happened. It formed a little range again. After it broke out of it, you could have just capitalized as soon as it broke out of the range and pushed up to the top with the Nasdaq. And then NFP was probably this day, right? This was Friday. This was NFP. I think this was the spike for NFP. Remember, you always wait for the spike. It spiked up, spike down, came back to your point of interest. If we even go on to a lower time frame, it will make a lot more sense, right? So what we learned from last week is the little ranges that we're having, right? The market was just giving us a little range and then breaks out of it and then pushes up to the top. Even right now it is forming a little range, almost similar to the previous analysis that I had where we had this little setup like this, and I wanted, the Asian and the London session to play around at this zone, and then we actually capitalized. I don't remember when that was. I think it was somewhere here. I think, when was that trade? Was it this trade? Yeah, it was this trade. It's almost exactly the same thing where we had the little range at the spot and then the market broke out and then we absolutely just, obliterated Nasdaq and pushed up with it to the top. So remember, it's just because of the amount of news that we're having in the market for last week. Every single day was a news day last week. Unlike the week before where we only had the news on Monday and Tuesday and then the rest of the days were, holidays in the US. This week was an absolutely different one, and the NFP report came out really positive, good for the Nasdaq. It actually pushed up to the top. The interesting thing that's happening right now is Nasdaq and US 30 not moving, in coordination at the same time. US 30 looks like it is selling, as you can see right over here, unlike Nasdaq that is just buying, and we are having new highs on the Nasdaq, right? It's like US 30 is determined to want to come and close this gap that it had in that previous week. Now remember that if the gap was not closed on that Monday, there's a high chance that it won't even be closed for that week. And it's already the beginning of the 3rd week, right? This was the week where the gap was formed. And then this is the week that we just came out of. This is the new week and the gap has not yet been closed. The only important thing that was playing out here was just being patient, waiting for each and every candlestick to close and then interpreting what the market is saying with those candlesticks that, it was forming. And for all of that, we had a lovely week. And right now, let's just dive right into the weekly analysis. But before we do all of that good stuff, if you're new to the channel, welcome. We trade the Nasdaq over here. If you're returning, welcome back here. You know what's up. Don't forget to hit that like button, turn on your post notifications, and subscribe to the channel. Now, the first thing that I actually want to check is, do we have news for this week? Because I always want to capitalize when we have news in the market. And I absolutely hate weeks where we don't have news because we barely get setups, right? I always want to trade when there is volatility in the market. That's it. After NFP, we always have CPI. So on Wednesday, we are going to have CPI, PPI on Thursday, Monday, Tuesday. We don't have news also on Friday. So it's not really bad as long as we have 3 decent days to trade. That would be good. So Friday, it already has, enough volatility since the market will be closing. The market always wants to move, on Friday. Wednesday, we do have news. Thursday, we do have news. So that's a decent week already. Mondays are trap days, and Tuesday will just be, we might get a nice setup, right? So right now, let's just go right over to the charts. Now we're looking at our Nasdaq right over here, and you see these levels, points of interest that I already have marked up over here. That's exactly what I'm looking for the Nasdaq. Currently, we are at all-time highs, right? We have new highs on the Nasdaq at this zone. Very simple. How I always break it down. We would want to see the Nasdaq breaking out of this zone. But what I want you to notice is on, the daily time frame. This is a really crazy push to the upside, right? So we might see the market trying to, give us a little pull back. That's why the best point of interest for me trading the Nasdaq would be probably at this zone, right? When it nears that trend line that I have right over here. So for that to happen, it will probably have to play around a little bit because remember, the market just doesn't drop to these levels unless there's crazy volatility in the market, for no apparent reason, right? The highs that were broken out of by the Nasdaq have not yet been retested at this level also. So we should keep that in mind, right, when we're trading at this level. So if the market drops to this level, yes, we want to look for buying positions, but we're not going to risk a lot at this point here. That is where the psychology of trading should step in. You should be able as a trader to make situational analysis. You should be able to also read who is currently in control of the market as the candles near these levels, right? So we can also have a trend within the trend, but then that is going to bias a lot of people. So I would rather not have that. But if it does break out of it, probably at this level, then we already know that there's a high chance, right? It probably breaks out with a really bearish candle to the downside. And if it does that, there will be a high chance of it dropping to these levels. And yes, obviously, this would be a nice point of interest as the market retests. So for here, remember the stop loss strategy in that previous video is what you want to use at this level if the market gets to the zone, because there are a lot of other, levels to be considered at the zone, right? So Nasdaq does not look complicated at all. It looks absolutely ready for us to obliterate. We do see the market forming a little build up also at this level, but then this type of build up that's happening at the highs, there's a high chance that it might want to respect it, break out a little bit, but it might not even go far, right? Because right now what this tells us is there's indecision, between the buyers and the sellers right here. So whoever then takes, over the market, there is no setup currently as we are seeing the candles looking like this. Well, at least for me, with how I trade, I don't see anything nice for us to trade here unless the market breaks out or reverses to these levels that we'll be looking at, right? Just go over to US 30 for a short moment over onto the 4-hour time frame. So US 30, what I would want it to do, you can see that it's creating a little range at this level, right? So I don't want to really disturb my lines that I already have here because it's easier for me to analyze it like this. I already had this analysis, sent out to everyone in the free group. If you're not in it, check the links in the description below and make sure to join it, right? So we're just saying that US 30 is kind of like respecting this trade line. We also want to see it respecting it as it comes to this level to close this gap that it has at the zone, right? And they want to see good price action at the zone. If we do, then we'll go in for the buys. If we don't, the market breaks out, off this level and then drops down. We'll probably have a second attempt, probably in this zone, right? Well, this zone is too big, but then, I would probably want to take this level here because I like to take zones that have the most touches, right? So probably the zone would be good for us to see US 30 buying. And also that would happen with a lot of, new information that we'll get as the market forms and progresses. Probably will come around about this zone. And that's when we can, dive right into US 30 if it actually doesn't break out of the highs. If it does not close the gap and just starts pushing out to the top, there's going to be a high chance that US 30 would not even end up closing this gap here. And we have to absolutely just forget about it, right? We did have gold having such a gap, right? I don't know what time frame that is, but then there's a gap on gold that was never ever then closed, ever. You can see it right over here. then gold never then closed this gap here. So a lot of people were anticipating that the market is going to come back, close the gap. But you see, it just shot up to the top, never ever closed the gap, as you just had to forget about this type of gap right over here, right? So that's exactly what we're looking for also. Nothing too complicated. Nothing too complicated as usual. So if you did enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button, turn on your post notifications, and subscribe to the channel. You feel me? With that, it's been Tino, and I'll see you in the next lit video. Peace.